Good day everyone, this is the presentation of Group 4 from 12 Samuel. Our research is entitled An Evaluation on the Influence of the Packaging of White Bread Loaves to the Rate of Sensory Liking of Consumers of Pure Gold Bucandalatri, Imus City, Cavite.
This is the background of the study. Bread is a major wheat-based product which has gained customers' acceptance worldwide, especially to Filipinos when introduced in the 16th century. This pastry product is commonly consumed as a side, paired with coffee or tea, and sometimes used as a replacement for white rice. It is something that Filipinos usually buy whenever they go on a trip to the grocery. Also, bread can be bought conveniently by Filipinos since there are nearby local bakeries offering them. Therefore, bread has appeared as a staple because it is convenient, simple, and cheap. But this is how a normal consumer would view the baking industry. In this study, the researchers decided to look into the common scenario through the product's packaging. The following statements will serve as the researcher's guide in conducting the research. How many consumers of Pure Gold Bucandalatri, Imus City, Cavite are purchasing store-bought white bread loaves? If the consumers are considering the packaging of the bread loaves with regards to the different sensory modalities and assessing the significance of the presence of sensory modalities based on the evaluation of the consumers. The researchers will observe if there is any relationship between the presented factors of the study.
Good day everyone, my name is Joanna Angel Purisima and I am here to discuss about our theoretical framework. In the theoretical framework, we chose the consumer behavior theory cited in 2019 since it can support a research study. This theory is about how a consumers make a decision whenever they avail a certain products or services. It is somehow a big help to the businesses and marketers since it can predict how and when a customers will buy a product or avail a services by the use of presented types of behavior. This theory can also identify what factors might influence a consumers to buy a certain products or avail a services that will be a big help to the business world because it can use as a strategy. According to this theory, there are types of consumer behavior, which is the routine response, limited decision making, extended decision making, and impulse buying. This type of consumer behavior may vary depending on the consumer or the situation itself, which also explain why a buying behavior is both predictable and irrational. This theory also proves that the buying habits of consumers are constantly evolving. As the time progresses, there are changes in their consistent ways of buying a product. The factors that influence them whenever they make a purchase decision is the quality, packaging, affordability, convenience, and the appearance. This theory proves that a research study still exists in the part of consumer behavior. Given the fact that consumers nowadays base their purchase decision in the various factors. We, the researchers, are going to focus more on specific consumer behavior, which is their sensory liking. We will apply this idea on the packaging of white bread loaves. By presenting the different sensory modalities to the consumers to evaluate its significance and relevance to them. Using the consumer behavior theory, we, the researchers, will determine the influence of packaging of white bread loaves and the sensory modalities present to consumers of Pure Gold Bucandalatri, Imus City, Cavite, and their rate of sensory liking. Given the fact that the consumers are purchasing store-bought white bread loaves, the packaging and the sensory modalities will be the variable influencing their sensory liking.
Good day, I'm Jeric Apelo, and in the conceptual framework, we will assess or we will evaluate the influence of sensory modalities on the packaging of white bread loaves to the consumer sensory liking. And the following sensory modalities that we're going to use in the study is the appearance, odor, taste, and texture. In these following sensory modalities, we will identify which modalities affects the consumer the most. To identify that, we're going to use an online survey questionnaires as the instruments that will be distributed among the consumer of Pure Gold Bukandala 3, Imus City, Cavite. Then after that, we will analyze the gathered data to able to know the population of consumer who are being influenced by sensory modalities when buying white bread loaves. Therefore, the manufacturer will able to know which modalities should focus more on.
Next is the statement of the problem. For the statement of the problem, the study aims to evaluate the presence of the sensory modalities present on white bread loaves packaging to the sensory liking of the consumers. With this study, it will be answered by the following questions. First question is, what is the total number of consumers who are purchasing white bread loaves and one's demographic in terms of age, sex, and the brand of white bread loaf purchase? Second question is, what is the evaluation rate of consumers' sensory liking on the packaging of white bread loaves in terms of the listed sensory modalities? The sensory modalities are the appearance, odor, taste, and the texture. Third and last question is, what is the sensory modalities present on the packaging of white bread loaves influence the consumers the most? By answering these following questions, it will determine what is the most influence sensory modalities present on the white bread loaves packaging in terms of the sensory liking of the consumers who are purchasing at the Bukandala 3, Imo City, Cavite.
Good day, my name is Kristine Roldan. I'm here to discuss to you the scope and the limitation of the study. So the study focuses on evaluating the presence of sensory modalities on white bread loaves packaging as a factor influencing the sensory liking of consumers purchasing at Pure Gold Bukandala 3, Imo City, Cavite. So the researchers choose white bread loaves because it is one of often consumed pastry products by consumers. Also because it can be purchased conveniently for consumption. The researchers will only use white bread loaves purchased in grocery and convenience stores and not the ones that can be bought in bakeries as their product because these loaves are packaged in a way where four of the sensory modalities can be observed, whilst the loaves bought in bakeries are only packaged in thin plastic films or brown paper bags. So those packaging with manufacturing defect will also be excluded from this study. The researchers also chose a specific store so that consumers may be able to choose which white bread loaf brand they will buy based on the availability of different brands and not by convenience. Also, this research will only revolve on the ones who are buying the specific product.
Significance of the study to the students. Since they are the respondent, it will help them to know the purpose of sensory modalities in the packaging of different products. And to the parents, for them, since they are parents, we know that they are relatively secured, so it will help them also look at the qualities of the product, not only in the packaging. To the consumers, this will help them to know how important the packaging of the product is because sometimes we see that when the packaging is good for us, the quality of the product is also good to the manufacturer. It will also help them so that they will know, and it will be able to give them additional preference from other consumer from all bread loaves and to the future researchers. For them, it will also help them to have a idea about sensory modalities if ever they conduct a study.
In literature, Jeric on 2014 quoted that one-third of the customer purchasing decisions are based on the packaging of the product. She explained that a product should provide an eye-catching design since a customer's first impressions of the product before they pick it up is important and will influence the customer's buying decision. She also mentioned that not only does the packaging should affect purchasing decision, but should also trigger a ripple effect to attract new buyers. And for the second, according to Nielsen on 2015, Global Corporate Sustainability report the number of Filipinos willing to pay for product and services when sustainability increase. He explained that Filipinos are very responsible buyers. They are checking the labels before buying it, and they are also taking a closer to on product packaging to assess it carefully. This report shows that the evaluated Filipino purchase decisions are influenced by a product's packaging. The third one, Interpack 2019, mentioned that not only those bread packaging should be eye-catching but also safe from staling. Due to high moisture content of bread, sustainable packaging must be remembered and well planned for. The article also exclaimed that packaging materials need to prevent the growth of mold without the product being dry and hand-off aromas fading. As much as possible, while the packaging is attractive, it must be product safe as well. As stated in article titled Smaller Loaves of Bread Are on the Rise, written by Ellen Byron on 2019. He said that younger customers in particular is scrutinizing their bread consumption because they don't like wasting food. In a survey, the American Bakers Association found that nearly three-quarters of Generation Z and millennials customers, or those ages 18 to 41 years old, are bothered by wasting bread, and more than 1 in 5 of the customers often or always skip buying bread on their next trip to, to the store after throwing bread away. More than half of all Generation Z and millennials consumers said that would buy more baked goods, including bread, if they come up in a smaller portion, the survey found. The product packaging reflect the product qualities by railing on 2020. She mentioned that an excellent product is not likely to sell if the packaging looks cheap, especially if it doesn't ring a bell among customers. If the packaging looks cheap, they will assume that the product quality is equally low. This means that good quality materials and design lead to an increase of sales since the customers are attracted to the packaging of the product, making them buy it after laying an eye to the product.
Next is the local literature. According to Thomas, year 2012, in the basics of packaging research, if a product is not properly promoted by advertising, its packaging will play a greater role in the product's marketing. The packaging of the product should then be appealing to customers in terms of design and size. In addition, he noted that packaging is a moving target. This means that as time passes, product packaging will change as a result of competition with similar manufacturers. Since there might be similar products, the packaging should be unique and eye-catching above the rest. Next is by Business Coach Incorporation year 2014, and according to them, that packaging is all about how you display your product to the public. This is the image that you let the consumers view for them to purchase it. He also stated that packaging will not only boost your product's image but also its quality, pricing, and creativity that will drive the attention of consumers in purchasing the product. Third is according to Ferrellino, year 2018, he stated that in his article, Better and Tastier Truta, baked goods such as breads and cake have become a huge part of Filipino lifestyle. Almost every household, they prefer to enjoy their breakfast with a cup of coffee and bread, and celebrate special occasions with cakes. Bread, aside from being a reliable snack, also reflect the culture and history of some provinces in the country. He also cited that the local baking industry remains strong considering the large and reliable Filipino market. Next is according to Reyes, year 2019, cited that packaging is an effective marketing tool. It utilizes a catchy and distinct presentation above the product. Reyes explained that a product's packaging should be impressive to stand out from the rest and will capture the attention of consumers. When you place hundreds of similar products over a shelf, consumers will then compare those products by its packaging. He also used the term eating with your eyes, which means that consumer must be attracted first to purchase the product. Last is according to the article of Origins of Our Daily Breads that is written by Feliz Prudente Santa Maria, year 2019. The cuisine is one of the most dynamic elements of culture. Foods, in other words, are subject to changes as the ways people live to adapt to new settings, inventions, ingredients, weather patterns, trading partnership, economics, and health discoveries. Yet there are foods that last the centuries. Santa Maria also elaborated that they may no longer be made exactly as their original version, but they may remain proud examples of family traditions, as well as ethnic and national identities. Some of these foods include a staple bread. This explains that Filipinos have been consumers of bread centuries ago. Through each recipe may be evolving, the basic bread loaf hasn't been left behind.
So, according to Luciardella et al. 2014, he said some of the factors needed to be assessed whenever manufacturing the packaging of Daramat bread or similar na bread, because this factor includes thickness of the film used for the packaging. Also, in this study, reveals that such factor must be kept in mind whenever planning to manufacture your own pastry product. Second, according to Earth et al. 2014, mentioned that the design of the package plays an integral part in projecting the product's image. Also, in this study, revealed that the influence of the product design on the consumer price expectation is mediated through judgment of quality and attractiveness, but not only packaging affects their purchase decision, but it also affects their price expectation. The third one is Pasqualon et al. 2018. In this study, explained the two types of bread packaging that a manufacturer can consider to reduce plastic waste. First is the thermoform packaging, wherein it is composed of a thermoform bottom of a lid, and usually the bottom is thicker than the lid, and the other type is flow packaging, which use relatively thin films and has the advantage of high working speed and allow saving of packaging materials. For the fourth, Anderson et al. 2018. In this study, explained that liking all of the sensory modalities like appearance, odor, taste, and texture are reflected in the evaluation of overall liking, and if it's a single sensory modality stand out, it must be considered by manufacturers to gather more consumer of their product. And last, according to the study of Alsamarin et al. 2019, consumer direct, indirect, and interdependent behaviors in relation to purchase decision are related to each other, and also said that design was the first thing that manufacturers should watch out, since to the consumer eyes is the best things to attract them to consume your product.
For the local studies, according to Andaira 2010, packaging also affects the final purchase decision when it comes to cosmetics. Students who buy cosmetics more drawn by its design rather than the other packaging elements, since designs reflects the quality of the product inside the packaging. Then the next one is Capule 2014. According to Capule, food company relies on the sensory evaluation to determine the acceptability of their product to consumer sensory perception. Then the next one is Barcelon et al. 2014. According to a study, examined the sensory preference on street-vended ice cream of students enrolled at University of Santo Tomas. Three variants of dirty ice cream were used as a sample to determine the sensory preference of the students, and also his study is aimed to determine the microbiological properties of the sample used. Then the next one is Dedras 2015. According to Dedras, not only the design may affect the consumer purchase decision, but also the size and shape. He stated that people nowadays prefer the product that are small and easy to carry as convenient. Then lastly is Torres et al. 2019. According to Torres, in the packaging, nutrition level must be observed at all times. And also Torres mentioned that it is one of the vital elements in packaging, since it reflects the components of the product inside.
This is the synthesis of our study. Through related literature and studies, the researchers gain different knowledge and information that will certainly help the researchers fulfill their research objectives. First, the researchers have focused on providing the primary effects of packaging to the consumers. These effects include the increase to the rate of their purchase decision and price, product, and quality expectation. Then, the researchers found out that sensory liking of consumers may also be affected if sensory modalities are observed on the packaging of other products like fruit drinks, soy milk, and street vended ice cream. Also, the researchers gathered data about the important notes in the packaging material of white bread loaves like the presence of the nutrition labels, having rapid heat exchange with the environment, and the ability to evaporate water vapor to avoid molds. Lastly, the researchers gain information that as the rate of the consumer's sensory liking increases, then the rate of their purchase decision will also increase, which is also an indirect effect to the business's sales. Overall, these related literature and studies have a significant use for the researchers to conduct the study. Following this, based on the citations mentioned, the influence of sensory modalities on the packaging of white bread loaves are to the consumers and also to the manufacturers involved.
Methods of research. So in this study, the descriptive method was used as the research design. This research design was used to describe the characteristic of the population or phenomenon study. This helps to allow the researchers carry out shallow data gathering using different methods such as short survey. So the researchers' general purpose is to evaluate the presence of the sensory modalities on white bread loaves packaging to the rate of sensory liking of consumers purchasing at Pure Bacandala 3, Imus City, Cavite. The study will use a snowball sampling method. This sampling technique is observe existing subjects, provide referrals to recruit samples required for the research study. So this sampling method is also used when there is no pre-calculated list of target population details. Given that this research is exclusive for consumers who are purchasing white bread loaves at Purgod Bacandala 3, Imus City, Cavite.
Next is the research respondents. Consumers of white bread loaves purchased at Purgod Bacandala 3 in Imus City, Cavite serves as respondents for the researchers in this study. The researchers decided to analyze the entire customer population to see whether there are any significant differences in who is consuming white bread loaves in terms of age groups. Given their place, these consumers are subjected to a range of brands from which to choose white bread loaves. These consumers also have the cognition to answer the given questions provided in the questionnaire.
For the locality of the study, the location that the researchers choose for this study is Purgod Bacandala 3, Imus City, Cavite, since the chosen respondents are purchasing white bread loaves at the said location. The researchers choose a specific store to control the buying behavior of consumers. There are 10 estimated brands of white bread loaves that can be purchased within the grocery to where the customer will choose based from the availability of different brands and not by the convenience. This settings is located within a number of households to where 8,456 recorded individuals are residing according to the 2015 census. Among the provided number, the age group of 20 to 24 is the most abundant. Based on the data provided, the area can cater an ample number of respondents for this research. For the research instrument, we're going to use the survey questionnaire as the major instrument to gather information in this study. This questionnaire will be a structured questionnaire which consists of fixed questions about the problem. We researchers will also use the close-ended question since there are only a limited number of options to choose from. And also the Likert scale will also use as the means of answering the questionnaire.
So for the research questionnaire, you can put your email name, age, sex, and what kind of white bread loaf that you purchase, like gardenia, Marby, Mr. Pullman, Sariroti, Uncle George, Walter, or other white bread loaf that we did not mention. So you can answer agree, strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. And first to 5 question about appearance. First is, if you like the design present of the packaging in white bread loaf. I mean the design that they put on the packaging. 2. If the image on the packaging help you to imagine the white bread loaves. It seems like that it's because of the image you imagine the whole quality of the white bread loaves. 3. If you like the colors that is on the packaging of the white bread loaves, and the color that you think suit on the packaging, something like that. 4. If you like the font that is on the packaging of the white bread loaf, this font that style of the letters and its colors. 5. If the appearance of the packaging help you to assume the overall quality of the white bread loaf. The next question is about odor, or let's say smell of the packaging. Number 6, you like on how the packaging of white bread loaves does not have unpleasant smell like bad smelling. Sometimes there's packaging that smell like a rubber. 7, you usually check if there is an unpleasant smell on the packaging of white bread loaf. It's like before you buy, you smell it first if there's is a strange smell. 8, if you like the words used to describe the aroma of the white bread loaves, the words that place on the packaging of the product. And for the 9th question, the scent of the packaging materials of white bread loaf influence your opinion about its quality. It's something you base your judgment on because of the smell of the packaging. 10. The image on the packaging help you assume the aroma of white bread loaves. It seems like it because of the image you see that you imagine the smell of a product. So for the next is question about taste. So 11. The image on the packaging help you assume the taste of the white bread loaves. It seems like it's because of the image you see that you imagine the taste of a white bread loaf. 12. If you like the words used to describe the white bread loaf taste, the word that plays on the packaging to influence consumers. 13. You like on how the transparency of the packaging enables you to see the white bread loaves delectability. As if because you can see the bread itself inside because of the transparency of its packaging, you can see how delicious the white bread loaf. 14. The nutrition facts on the packaging help you perceive the content of the white bread loaf. It means the nutrition facts that display at the back of the packaging, and because of that, does it help you to be aware or understand the content. 15. The manufacturing and expiration date on the packaging help you assume the white bread loaf's condition. Conditions like the appearance or the quality. And next, about texture. So, 16, you like the quality of the materials used for the packaging of the white bread loaves. Where we say quality of materials is like the finished product and the raw materials. 17, you like how the packaging of white bread loaves help you to carry it easily. 18, you like how the white bread loaf is sealed tightly. 19, you usually check whether the packaging of white bread loaf have holes. Sometimes there's a white bread loaf that there's a hole. 20, you like how the packaging of white bread loaf is not easy to be read.
In the data gathering procedures, we, the researchers, formulated a questionnaire and also made a non-disclosure agreement to ensure if the consumer will agree to be part of the research study and for the privacy of their data to be collected. Afterwards, we, the researchers, distributed the formulated survey to each respondent online through the use of Google Forms, and then collected it in the end to prepare for the analysis of the gathered data.
This is a statistical treatment of data that we were going to use in our research. This descriptive quantitative research will target a selected respondent among the population of consumers of Pure Gold Bukandara 3, Imo City, Cavite. The level of measurement to be used in the survey questionnaire is an ordinal data, and therefore, descriptive statistical techniques such as the frequency, median, and the percentage will be used. To get the median, the researchers are to arrange the gathered respondents in ascending order and aim to point the middlemost data which will serve as the median. To get the percentage, the researchers are then to divide the responses from an option and divide it by the total number of responses gathered. This procedure will be done in all options of all questions. To determine the rate of influence of the sensory modalities in the packaging of white bread loaves to the consumer's sensory liking, the 4-point Likert scale was used. Its interpretation is as follows. 1, which means strongly disagree, and it has the interpretation of the packaging does not affect the consumer's sensory liking at all. 2, disagree, which has the interpretation of the packaging does not affect the consumer's sensory liking somehow. 3, agree, which has the interpretation of the packaging does affect the consumer's sensory liking somehow. And 4, strongly agree, which has the interpretation of the packaging does affect the consumer's sensory liking entirely.
To chapter number 4, this is the findings and the results. This chapter presents the answer to specific problems raised in order to achieve the objectives of this study. The data were derived from the surveys that the respondents took and was recorded. These data were presented, analyzed, and interpreted in order to give definite and better understanding of results. And for the scoring instructions, this will be the interpretations and their definite score. For the interpretations of strongly agree, it will be scored as 4 points. For the interpretation of agree, it will be scored as 3 points. For the interpretation of disagree, it will be scored as 2 points. And for the interpretation of strongly disagree, it will be scored as 1 point. And for the scoring interpretations, this will be the scoring range. The scoring range of 3.16 to 4 points, it will be the interpretation of strongly agree. And this means that the packaging does affect the consumer's sensory liking entirely. For the scoring range of 2.51 points to 3.15 points, it will be the interpretations of the agree, and it explains that the packaging does affect the sensory liking somehow. For the scoring range of 1.76 points to 2.50 points, it will be the interpretation of disagree, which means that the packaging does not affect the consumer's sensory liking somehow. And for the scoring range of 1 point to 1.75 points, it will be the interpretation of strongly disagree, which means that the packaging does not affect the consumer's sensory liking at all.
Problem number 1. What is the total number of consumers who are purchasing white bread loaves and one's demographic in terms of: first is age distribution for 210 respondents. Table 4.1 indicates that the respondent ages range between 14 to 44 years of age. The mean was 18 years. The standard deviation was 4, which indicate that the sample was heterogeneous in terms of age. The total respondents among Furgol, Bukandara 3, Imus City are 210. 3 of them prefer not to indicate their age. The second one is sex distribution for 210 respondents. Figure 4.2 indicates that 74 out of 210 respondents, or 35.2%, were males, and 136 out of 210 respondents, or 64.8%, were females. The mode score was 2.0. The majority of respondents were therefore female. For the result of brand of white bread loaf purchase, based on the survey, American white bread we got 1 respondents with 0.5%. Then next is the Gardenia we got 171 respondents, that equivalent of 81.4%. Then next is Marby we got 19 respondents, that equivalent of 9%. Then Mr. Pullman we got 7 respondents, that equivalent of 3.3%. Then Pinoy's Tasty we got 2 respondents with equivalent of 1%. Then Sari Roti we got 5 respondents, that equivalent of 2.4%. Then Uncle George we got 4 respondents, that equivalent of 1.9%. Then lastly is the Walter we got also 1 respondents with 0.5%, the total of 100%. So overall, most of our respondents are buying the brand of Gardenia. We got 171 respondents, that equivalent of 81.4%. And the least is the American white bread. We got 1 respondents with 0.5%. Also, the Walter we got 1 respondents with 0.5%.
Problem number 2. What is the evaluation rate of consumer sensory liking and the packaging of white bread loaves in terms of the least sensory modalities? Figure 4.4 appearance valid is 210 and missing is 0, and the mean that they had is 3.2238, and the STD deviation is 0.82567. Figure 0.4 indicates that in terms of appearance, 5.7% respondents were strongly disagree, and 8.1% were disagree, and 44.3% were agree, and 41.9% were strongly disagree. The mean score was 3.22 and the computed standard deviation was 0.8. The transmuted mean of 3.22 has a transmuted scale of 4 with a verbal interpretation of strongly agree, which indicates that the packaging does affect the consumer sensory liking entirely.
In the figure 4.5, it indicates that in terms of odor, there are 11 respondents who answered strongly disagree, which has 5.2%, and 24 respondents answered disagree, which has 11.4%, and 91 respondents answered agree, which has 43.3%, and 84 respondents answered strongly agree, which has 40.0%. The mean score was 3.18 and the computed standard deviation was 0.8. The transmuted mean of 3.18 has a transmuted scale of 4 with a verbal interpretation of strongly agree, which indicates that the packaging does affect the consumer's sensory liking entirely.
So in terms of taste, the 17 respondents were strongly disagree. The 12 respondents were disagree. The 76 respondents were agree, and 105 respondents were strongly agree. The average score was 3.28 with a standard deviation of 0.9 in the figure. The transmuted mean of 3.28 has a transmuted scale of 4 and verbal meaning of strongly agree. So, indicating that the packaging has an effect on the consumer sensory liking entirely.
Next is in terms of the packaging's texture. From the 5 questions about texture, the data gathered is as follows. 15, 7.1% respondents were strongly disagree, 11, 5.2% were disagree, 74, 35.2% were agree, and 110, 52.4% were strongly agree. The mean score of the data gathered was 3.33, and the computed standard deviation was 0.9. The transmuted mean of 3.33 has a transmuted scale of 4 with a verbal interpretation of strongly agree, which indicates that the packaging does affect the consumer sensory liking entirely. To answer the third problem, which is to find out which of the sensory modalities present on the packaging of white bread loaves influence the consumers the most, the mean of all sensory modalities are then arranged, and it reveals that the texture is the most influencing sensory modality to consumers among the remaining modalities.
For the chapter number 5, this is for the summary of the study. Since the introduction of the bread in the 16th century, it became the most popular wheat-based product worldwide, especially among us Filipinos. This pastry product is sometimes substituted for white rice as a side dish with coffee or tea. The aim of this study is to determine which sensory modalities have the greatest impact on consumer sensory liking by asking this following 3 research questions. The first research question looked at the average number of people who bought white bread loaves in Bukandala 3 Imus City, Cavite, as well as their age, gender, and the brand of white bread loaf they bought. The rate of the customer sensory liking for the packaging of white bread loaves in terms of appearance, odor, taste, and the texture is the subject of research question 2. Finally, research question 3 determine which of the 4 sensory modalities present on the packaging of white bread loaves has the greatest impact on consumer sensory liking.
Research question 1 showed the demographic profile of the respondent in terms of their age, sex, and brand of white bread loaf purchase. For the research question 1, the findings are as follows. The study disclosed that in terms of age, 86.67% of the respondents are in teenage bracket who are buying white bread loaf. From the 210 respondents, it revealed that 14 years old was the youngest and 44 years old was the oldest respondent who were purchasing white bread loaves in Bukandala, Pure Gold Bukandala 3, Imus City, Cavite. And in terms of sex, 32.2% were males and 64.8% were females, which most of the females answered the survey. And the researcher discovered that among 210 respondents, 81.4% of which were purchasing the white bread loaf of gardenia, while brand of American white bread and Walter were at least broth, which 0.5%. It means that gardenia was the most broth brand to the respondents.
So, this is the findings for the research question 2 reveals that the consumer's rate of sensory liking according to the 4 sensory modalities like appearance, odor, taste, and texture. In terms of the packaging appearance, the consumer responses accumulated an average score of 3.22 with a standard deviation of 0.8. It has transmuted scale of 4 with the verbal meaning of strongly agree, indicating that the consumers are influenced by the packaging of bread loaves when they buy it. The next is the packaging odor. The consumer's responses accumulated an average score of 3.18 with a standard deviation of 0.8. It has transmuted scale of 4 and the verbal meaning of strongly agree. This implies that the odor has an effect on consumers when they purchasing white bread loaves. So, the next one is the packaging's appeal to taste, and the consumer's responses accumulated an average score of 3.28 with a standard deviation of 0.9. So, it has transmitted scale of 4 and the verbal meaning of strongly agree. So, the majority of the consumers agree that the taste of white bread loaves affect their purchasing decision. In terms of the packaging texture, the consumer's response accumulated an average score of 3.33 with the standard deviation of 0.9. So, it has transmuted scale of 4 and the verbal meaning of strongly agree. So, this is implying that the packaging texture does influence the respondents completely.
For the problem 3, based on the gathered data from our respondents who are consumer of white bread loaves in Pure Gold Bukandala 3, Imus City, Cavite. Majority of our respondents are affected by the textures when it comes in buying or purchasing white bread loaves. So the result indicates that textures are affects the consumer the most when buying or purchasing white bread loaf because textures got mean of 3.3286 with standard deviation of 0.87038. So based on that, we can determine that textures are the most influenced sensory modality present in the packaging of white bread loaf to consumer when in terms of buying or purchasing white bread loaf.
Good day everyone, I am here to discuss about our conclusion which is located in the chapter 5. The chosen topic of the researchers is the influence of the sensory modalities present on the packaging of white bread loaves to the rate of sensory liking of the consumers of Pure Gold Bukandala 3, Imus City, Cavite. The researchers focus on a specific behavior of a consumers, which is their sensory liking. The researchers of the study conducted a quantitative investigation on how the presence of sensory attributes on the packaging of white bread loaves acts as a factors influencing the rate of the sensory liking of the consumers purchasing at Pure Gold Bukandala 3, Imus City, Cavite. This study of the researchers also aims to let the consumers be aware that the packaging of the products, not only in the packaging of white bread loaves, is also a factor that one should be considered before making a purchasing decision. We, the researchers, are able to get all the information that we need because of the cooperation of our respondents. Aside from the consumer behavior theory, the data that we collected prove that this study still exists nowadays, given the fact that the consumers really change their preferences as the time progresses. it makes our study more valid and causes problems to the business world, given the fact that the consumers are the bloodline of every company. This study of the researchers can be a big help to the entrepreneur, for the reason that this study can show a result of most and least influential sensory modalities of the consumers when they are making a purchasing decision on a certain product. This study can also give them idea that the sensory liking of the consumers is practically affected by the packaging of a certain product. I can say that we, the researchers, have successfully answered and proven all our assumptions, problems, and objectives of the study. Due to the result of the data collected, we, the researchers, concluded that the sensory modalities on the packaging do affect the consumer sensory liking entirely. The data collected undergoes through a process of analysis and interpretation to better understand and to get all the information that we need for the study. According to the data that we collected, there are 210 consumers who are purchasing white bread loaves from the chosen locale. Their age ranges between 14 to 44 years old. Through the given data, we can say that majority of it are females. Due to the result of the collected data, we the researchers concluded that the most consumable brand of white bread loaves is the Gardenia, and the least consumable are the American white bread and the Walter. The next one is the evaluation rate of consumer sensory liking on the packaging of white bread loaves. The result of this is that the appearance has a transmuted mean of 3.22, the odor has a 3.18, the taste has a 3.28, and lastly, the texture has a 3.33. Due to the data that we collected that undergoes through the process of analysis and interpretation, we, the researchers, concluded that the texture is the most influential sensory modality to the consumers when purchasing a white bread loaves.
The researchers recommend the following for future researchers who are going to use the same or similar study in their own adaptation of the topic. 1. The presence of manufacturing or factory defect products may affect the respondent's perception on normal manufactured products. The research topic must state its scope and delimitation to clarify the said situation. 2. Limited brands of white bread loaves were present in the chosen locale. Choose an appropriate location that caters a wide variety of white bread loaf brands with a lot of consumers purchasing in the area. 3. Respondents were of different age brackets and sex. If investigated on a more specific respondent, like the specific age bracket, comparison between men and women, and number 4, the research was done in a snowball sampling method to where referrals are made. The use of a different sampling method may help the future researchers in gathering more data to support their study even more. And lastly, there is a need to survey the respondents personally in the chosen locale to better control the situation and the products to be used as the research topic. Again, this is the Group 4 of Blossom Well with the research title An Evaluation on the Influence of the Packaging of White Bread Loaves to the Rate of Sensory Liking of Consumers of Pure Gold Bukandala 3, Imus City, Cavite.